Before I let you run, Ross, I did want to ask you kind of a philosophical question here, not necessarily a long one, but about the call-ups. And I'm particularly interested, and I'm not second guessing here, but I'm just interested in why Anthony Alford and
Yeah,
Danny Jansen.
Danny Jansen weren't brought
fair,
up.
definitely fair questions. We talk a lot about those guys. So there's three reasons you bring September call-ups, in our opinion, and it's so one, first and foremost, to make your major league team better. Secondarily, to expose younger players to the environment, to the pace of the game, to Major League Baseball. And then lastly, and whether these are the most important can be debated based on where you are in the season and where you are in the standings, not where you are in the season, where you are in the standings, is to protect some of your more veteran players that have been carrying the bulk of your workload.
Mm-hmm.
So that can be pitching, that can be guys that have just played every single day, and you want to give them, day games after night games off. So after you factor all of that in, you have to make sure that you also have playing time. So with the recall of Oscar Hernandez, we didn't see Anthony Alford getting a ton of playing time in and around Steve Pearce, Ezekiel Carrera, and obviously Kevin Pillar, Jose Bautista. So, the left-handed pinch hitter and Michael Saunders made some sense for us. And when we bring a player, we want to make sure they're playing, and that's what it came down to for him. And very similar for Danny Jansen, but a little bit different in that his rise to AAA has been as steep as they come. So wanted to make sure that, you start to think about a rotation of Anderson and Biagini and Stroman and Happ, and those guys have been working very hard with these catchers all year, have found a rhythm, and those guys have gotten comfortable with those pitchers. Then you factor in, okay, Estrada, Estrada's been the guy that every time we've given the new catcher or the guy that hasn't had as much exposure. And so do we want to do that to him for the rest of the year? So when would Danny Jansen catch, and thinking about what that means for other guys that are currently on our team, and then ultimately how steep his rise has been. But believe me, we spent a ton of time on those decisions. It wasn't something that we decided, like I just discussed, that it sounded like, in 5 minutes it makes sense not to. We had a very extensive process to determine that ultimately this wasn't the right time, but we are extremely encouraged by those two individuals and think that they'll be integral to our success going forward.
Danny Jansen's really intriguing, and you also have you have other young catchers in the system as well. So it's actually a kind of a organizational position of strength, I would think, Ross. But he was offensively dominant at three different levels this year. But obviously, learning how to catch be a big league catcher, there's a whole other element to it that is different than any other defensive position. What do you think he is in 2018? Because 2017 was remarkable for this kid.
Yeah, it's a really good, interesting question and a great problem to have, because he's been so good. You want him on your major league team, someone who has been defensively better every day. It is. Your point is right. It's not. It's more complex than just picking up the ball and throwing it where it needs to be thrown, because there's so much that you need to do in terms of preparation and being proactive, and so much leadership involved. And it's not the patting on the back, slapping on the tail type leadership I'm talking about. It's being prepared enough to be strong enough in your suggestions to a pitcher that give him confidence. And that takes time. You don't just wake up and do that, because he doesn't know this league. So what does it look like in 2018? That's a great debate. I would think the most likely scenario is that we like him to catch every day so he can continue to develop that leadership aspect of the game. And that means he's in AAA. Having said that, we feel good about what we've seen in Rafi Lopez and Luke Maile. And, if there's a way for us to do better than that, we do feel good about some of the options we have. But, there's a lot can happen in an off season. A lot can happen in spring training. And we are certainly glad to have that dilemma in front of us, because he has been one of the highlights of our year.
What about what he might learn sitting next to Russell Martin every day?
Yeah, that's massive and extremely important. And at some point that will be a part of his development. There's no question. But it's the The problem with that is that he's doing it sitting on a bench. He's not getting at bats, and he's not getting the reps.